first question is about the inflection solver. Let's see. All right, so I have a screenshot here. And so the confusion is, I guess the confusion is that every once in a while, I guess it's understandable, people think that the inflection solver is a bar reversal solver as well. But no, the inflection solver is purely a inflection. Has nothing to do with bars. So I thought I would take this opportunity to kind of show you another little tip about using the inflection solver here. And I think this bar type is a pure logic bar type, if I remember correctly. Actually, here we go. I think I got another screenshot here. Yeah, this is a pure logic bar type. So that's why you get kind of some of these half Renko size reversal bars like this. I'm not sure why the pure logic ones are doing that. Kind of funky for a Renko, but it is what it is, and it's nice to have all these different bar types out there. So right, so here's kind of a classic one. So we got this little, almost a doji, but it does have a body on it. So we have a green number 1 is a up bar, but then number 2, it's still an up bar, but you can see the red racing stripe, right? So we actually had a down inflection, and then we had an up inflection. So the confusion is, why did the inflection solver, give me a short reversal or short inflection when it's a green bar? Well, it's because the inflection solver has nothing to do with the bar colors or bar direction. There's only one solver that deals with the bar direction, and that's the bar direction solver. So inflection just looks at how the inflection looks at how your data is reversing up or is your data reversing down. So we'll take a look at what that means for price. So and so let's see, we'll just get our BloodHound file named here. Okay, so all right, so we'll just kind of take a look at inflection on price bars here. So let's grab a inflection solver. And let me rename this here. All right, and we'll set the type to price. All right, so what we're doing is we're looking at the inflection of the closing price. So, that has nothing to do with the body of the bar. All right, so to see what the inflection solver is looking at clearly, right, to put this really in perspective, don't use candlesticks. So what you want to use is line. So you want to take the closing price of your bars, convert it to a line so it looks like an indicator. And let's see, I need to, all right, why it's not letting me click on it. There we go. So let's take my line and make it white here. Well, actually, I guess I better keep it orange. All right, so once you use the line on close, so again, what I've done here is I'm using line on close. Now you can actually see what the inflection solver is looking at, because now the price looks like a plot. So now it's going to make more sense. So I wish I had some drawing tools on here. But if you look at bar 1, right, it's an up bar, so the closing price is up there. Now, if you look at bar 2, it's also an up bar, so the closing price is at the top of the green, right? And you can see that if you drew a line between the close of bar 1 and bar 2, that price actually moved down. The closing price moved down. And that's why the inflection solver gives you a short output. So that's why you get a red racing stripe from the inflection solver. And then with the closing price being right here where my cursor is, and now the next bar, bar number 3, you can see the closing price is up again. And so basically, right, if you drew a line between the closing price of bar 2 to bar 3, you can see that price moved back up, and then that's why we got a green or long racing stripe from the inflection solver. So, right, so that's what's going on with the inflection solver. And let's take a look at some of these others. So, yeah, here we go. Let's zoom way in here. So the same thing happens here with this pure logic bar. So if you draw a line from the closing price of the bars, right? So over here on the left, right, the closing prices are moving up, but then where we got the red racing stripe, the closing price moved down. Even though it's a green bar, the inflection solver does not look at the direction of the bar at all. But price did indeed move down. So, you know, so if you want to combine the inflection solver, you know, with the direction of the bar, then you have to use 2 solvers to do that. All right, so we'll take a quick look at doing that because I've already kind of done this once before. So, and we'll so let me set my chart back up. Let's put it back on candlesticks. And well, I'm going to take a quicker route here instead of trying to fix the colors. There. We'll just reload today's BloodHound file. Okay, there we go. So we can take the inflection solver and we can add a bar direction solver. And let's see. I won't actually give. I don't have any bar types like that Ultimate Renko that kind of give you that, you know. Yeah, I don't have any bar types that I can actually use here, so I'll just kind of have to just show you what to do. So put that in there. And the next key is in the inflection solver, you'll have to use a lookback period. Oops, sorry, down here, a lookback period of 2. Right, make sure it's under the settings, not inside the input, not to look back for price, but just to look back for the solver. All right, so under settings, set your look back to 2. All right, and so what that does is that it takes our inflection and it extends it out 2 bars. So you can see how some of these inflections are extended out by 2 bars. All right, like so. And then we'll need another cleanup here. So, you know, so right now some of our reversals, some of our bar reversals have 2, right? Have 2 outputs. So if you want to clean that up and get it back down to 1 output, then what we'll do is we'll use a look back. No, sorry. Not a look back, signal blocker. Yeah, let's grab a signal blocker. And we can set our block signals just down to 2, like so. And there we go. And then that cleans up all the double signals, like that. So, all right, so there's the quick answer. All right, so we're using the swing indicator. All right, so it's a sensitivity of 7, and so I guess the question is about the double top, double bottom threshold setting, you know, which you can use ATRs. So let's get the ATR on there. And let's get the swings on there. Okay, sensitivity of 7. And here's our ATRs. All right. So you could actually use other measurements here as well. You know, you could use points, ticks, Renko bricks, or ATRs. All right, and of course you have the ATR period that you can adjust as well, right? Because the ATR is an indicator. So let's see, I'll go 1.5. We'll go right in the middle between 1 and 2 ATRs, and let's put that on the chart. And let's see, to properly use an ATR, really range bars don't use an ATR very well. You can see that the ATR is only ranging between 1.26 to 1.28, right? That's a very small range because range bars don't really have a volatility. So let's switch it to minute bars. So that'll get us some volatility, and so now you can see the volatility as measured by the ATR, right? And this is a 14 period ATR. So if I want the ATR on my chart to match the ATR used in the swing indicator, I need to go back in the swing indicator. Let's go back in here and change my ATR period to 14. Right. That way the swing indicator ATR setting matches the ATR I've got on my chart. Or I could set the other one to 100, but let's just get them to match up. And all right, so here we go. Here's a double top. All right, we've got a couple of double bottoms to work with as well. And one more thing, let's pull up the documentation. So we'll go to support and documentation. And if we scroll down a little bit under other indicators, right there's the swings indicator. Click on that. And so all right, so anyways, the threshold is basically, the threshold is used to calculate the maximum distance between swing points to determine if it's a double top or double bottom. All right, so for example, let's draw some lines on here. So we can see, here I'll do this. Oh, I grabbed the wrong one. Just a moment here. Okay, so what I've done is drawn basically some lines that we can measure, so that you can visually see kind of the measurement that's going on here. All right, so the dashed line, right, that's basically representing the high or the low of the first swing point, and then the solid line, right, that's the high or the low of the second swing point. And the distance in between, right, so the arrow is just kind of illustrating the distance in between, right, so that distance in between is what determines if it's a double top or double bottom. And so the threshold for that distance, the threshold for the maximum distance to qualify as a double top or double bottom, right, that's what can be adjusted. So let's pull up our settings again. And there we go. So, right, so this double top, double bottom threshold, this allows you to adjust the maximum distance that determines a double top or double bottom. And so right now we're using an ATR. So, right, that means that we take the ATR value and you multiply it by this value. So we multiply it by 1.5 times. Right, so let's see. I'm guessing that. So this is our double top on this bar. So I'm guessing that we take that the indicator is taking the ATR value, right there. Taking the ATR value right there on that double top bar. All right, so this is our double top bar. So we're taking the ATR value, which is 1.64 or 65, somewhere around there. Actually, let's find out. Okay, it's 1.65. Let's just stretch that out. So you take the ATR value, 1.65, and you multiply it by 1.5. So that'll give us 2.25, basically, just to round off, just to keep things simple. That gives us 2.25. So what you do is the distance of this arrow must be no more than 2.25, when you look at price. And so if we're looking at price, let's see here. We got 34.25 up to 35.5. Yeah. So, well, that's 1.25. So this arrow represents 1.25 points. But our ATR, our ATR is at 1.65 points. It's measuring 1.65 points. Right. So this distance for this double top is actually, this distance is less than 1 ATR, right? Because 1 ATR is the value right here, which is 1.65. And this distance is less than 1.65. All right, let me draw. Here's another cool thing that you can do if you're trying to figure this stuff all out in your head. Is so I just made a box that's 1.65 high. There we go. So I can use this. So this box is basically 1 ATR, but only on this bar, right? Because you can see the ATR is constantly changing, bar by bar, as volatility expands and contracts. So if I take this, I can see that this distance is clearly less than 1 ATR. And so that's why this qualified as a double top. And basically the same rules would apply. The same rules would apply for this double top here as well. So, all right. So I hope that that kind of gives a simple explanation of how the ATR measurement works. So if you want to get more information, maybe somebody like Investopedia has a nice write-up about using ATR measurements. I'm not sure if they do or not because I've never. It's been a long time since I've had to look that up. So, and all right, before I go to 1.1, question 1.1, let me just take a look at the board. All right, Thrallwind's asking what's the difference, and I'm going to have to guess that you're asking what's the difference in the measurement units. All right, so let's go back to our indicator. All right, so we have all these measured in. We have all these different measurement units here. All right, points, ticks, Renko bars, ATRs. So if you want to see an explanation of that, we do have that on our site as well. So let's pull that up. And let's see. So there's actually no link to it on this indicator. Okay, interesting. So let me just let me go to a solver here, like the bar length, and if we go to the range, all right, so solvers have the same measurement units, right? If you've noticed, let's pull up BloodHound here. So if we take a look at the let's see, no, not that one. Right, so if you notice that any solver that has a measurement, right, it also has this measured in, right? So it gives you points, ticks, Renko, or ATRs, right? So this measured in is kind of a universal setting that's used across a lot of the solvers and some of the indicators, right? So this measured in, so there is a written description of what these measured in units are, right? So these are different measurement units, right? You can measure in points for your instrument, or you can measure in ticks for your instrument. You can even use Renko bars or ATRs. So let's go find that. So if you just, all you need to do is just go to any solver that has a measurement, and then you can see right here, it says the type of measurement, and there's a link right there. So we can click on that, and here's the page that describes all the measurement units. So there's points, ticks, Renko bricks, and ATRs. So you can see the Renko bricks and ATRs is a little more complicated to explain there. So a little more of a write-up. So there we go. And this is on our, let's see, this is on the general confidence solver page. All right, so this is the page that kind of talks about it's an overview discussion of what confidence solvers are and all the parameters that they have in common. So you see solvers have a lot of common settings here, right? So each solver has a name, a description, actually the plot color, not anymore. We had to take that out for now. We're hoping we can get that plot color back in and later update. Solvers can have an enable, evaluate, There's an invert. Symbol. Oh yeah, I need to take that out. That is long gone. That, yeah. Nobody really used the symbol, so we just removed it. So need to take that out. But here you go. Data types. Let's see. No. Yeah, that's right. The data types or the input types. Right. So every solver you can set it to a fixed value, or you can have the solver looking at price, or the solver can look at volume or a indicator value. Right. So these are all common settings to every solver. You'll find them on this page here. So if we scroll up, you can see the little arrow there. So we're on the confidence solver page. Confidence solver page. And the measure in is all the way at the bottom. There we go. It's all the way at the bottom of the page. So, okay, so let's see. Let's get to question 1.1. Okay, so how do we determine the trend at the swing point high or low? All right. Let's see, what should we call this? Swings or SiSwings trend. Trend direction. All right, so if you're trying to get data out of the swings indicator, you'll need to use the threshold solver to do that. And the reason why is you'll notice that, right, this line that's put on here by the swings indicator, it is a line, it's not a plot. So you can't, right, the swings indicator doesn't have a plot. Right, if I double click on that, right, it brings up the line property. So yeah, so there's no plot coming out of the swings indicator. If we go into the indicator list, right, we can see that there is no plots section here for this indicator. It's drawing lines or it's drawing text on the chart. So you have to use the threshold solver to look at the various data series coming out of this. So let's go down and find the swings indicator there. And let's set our parameters the same. So swings sensitivity of 7. And I was using 1.5 on the chart and a period of 14. There we go. So make sure that you set your parameters up, to match what you have on the chart. If we go down here, again, this plot called default, most of the time that is a fictitious plot that NinjaTrader adds for some reason. We don't know why, but half the time, I'd say the majority of the time, this default plot is not a real plot. There's only a couple of NinjaTrader indicators that actually have a plot called default. So in this case, for the swings indicator, there is no plot from this indicator. So NinjaTrader just threw that in for, I don't know why, good measure, I guess. So there's nothing that you can get out of this plot. But the swing indicator does have all of this data series information. And so let's see, what we want is swing direction. So if it's an upswing, in other words, if we have a green line, then that's going to be a +1 value for an uptrend or a -1 for a downtrend. So let's select that. And then next we need to set our outputs here. So So we can just simply do this. All right. Now, you'll notice, I'll just point this out real quick. All right. This indicator cannot predict the future, right? We don't have indicators that predict the future. So you'll notice that, right, even though we had a low point here, but this low point, or to say this uptrend, was not known until we get the long out point. So it wasn't until we got to this bar, right, the bar with the arrow. Once that bar printed, then the indicator knew that this was a low point and we were starting a new uptrend, right? So this indicator, like all indicators, has to wait for price to move a certain distance before the indicator knows that that price has changed directions, right? So you know, so for example, when you get kind of like this little temporary pullback here, right? This is not these little pullbacks don't fake out the indicator and put in an uptrend right there, right? So the higher the swing sensitivity, the more price has to move before the indicator goes, oh, okay, so price is reversing direction, so we're changing trend directions. So we can see right here. So looking back in hindsight, right, this was the low point, but price had to move way up here, had to move up high enough for this to be considered an uptrend. And so on this bar, the uptrend, was discovered. So for the next two bars, the indicator, says, well, price moved way up, so it looks like we're in an uptrend. But then, then again on this third bar, then price moved back down, and then the indicator goes, oh no, we're back down into downtrend. Okay, so let me show you guys a neat little trick that you can do with indicators. So if you want to see how an indicator is behaving almost in real time, then what I'm going to do is disconnect from your data feed. And then on the chart, I'm going to refresh or reload my Ninja script. And I can watch the indicator here. So let me get rid of some of these drawings. So right there's our higher low right there. Now if I use the arrow key on my keyboard, I can step forward. And so now all of a sudden the indicator updated itself, and now that's the higher low. Right? You can see the indicator is not doing anything right now because there's no newer low point made. And now a new low was just made, so the indicator updated itself. Right, so the indicator is updating itself whenever a new low is made. So now price is moving up, but it hasn't moved up enough to determine a uptrend. And we can see it's coming soon. So we can see my ellipse right there. And now, so look how many bars went by before the indicator said, oh, we had price moved up high enough that we now got an uptrend. Right, now I'm just using the right arrow on my keyboard to just step through bar by bar. So now we're in an uptrend. Right, even though price has moved down, had a little pullback, it's not a pullback enough to change the trend direction, until we get this bigger move down. And now the trend has been changed to a downtrend. All right, anyways, that's the short version for the
using the swings indicator. All right, so anyways, question 1.2. Let's see. Right, so how do we determine the reversal bar at the high-low, higher high, lower low, right, at all these points here? Basically, this is it. This, price has to move enough in the opposite direction to actually know that a higher high has been made, or to know that a lower low has been made. So there is other things that we can look at. So let me see. There was one more data series in there. I believe that might be of interest. So let me delete that. All right, so I'm going to put this new solver on here. And let's go take a look at the data series again. Oh, no, sorry. That's right. This indicator doesn't actually have. Yeah, that's right. There is not a data series that identifies the higher highs and higher low points. Yeah. So this is as close as you can get. As close as you can get to identifying, that a higher high was just made, or a lower low is just made. And once again, what I'm going to do is show you something here. So I'm going to refresh the chart, and so you see how we have a higher high here. It's marked there, and now all of a sudden it moved. So if the indicator was telling you, oh hey, we're at a higher high, I'm not sure what good that's going to do if it's constantly changing itself. Right, now it's up there. Before it was on that one. So we can see that this higher high is constantly changing. It's constantly getting updated. Right? So there you go. So just, keep in mind, there is no magic indicator that tells you exactly where price is going to reverse. In hindsight, indicators can clean everything up, so it looks perfect in hindsight. But in real time, there's no such thing. So, all right. Let's see. But there's a second part here, so we want to combine the trend with a bearish engulfing or bullish engulfing type bars, right? Although I don't think there's really any need for that. I don't know, maybe there is. So let's take a look at, we'll use NinjaTrader's candlestick indicator here. So, all right, but first, let me take a look at the questions here.
let's see, no questions so far. All right, so let's pull up the candlestick pattern indicator, and we'll look at the bearish engulfing first. There we go. And I guess we'll leave the strength at 4. We'll add that to the chart. And let's add another 3 candlestick indicators. Okay. There we go. There's a bullish engulfing. And we need a hammer and a hanging man. Okay. All right, there's a hammer and a hanging man. Hey, bingo. All right. There we go. Very nice. And let me see if I can find some other candlestick patterns on here. Yep, great. Another one right there. And a third one. All right, we'll stop with this third one here. Okay, so let's do the hammer. All right, so a hammer is that's a reversal pattern. And let's see. Yeah, I guess I'll just do it in the same logic template. All right, I don't need this third solver. It's just a duplicate. So let's get rid of that. And I'm going to remove it off of the solver tab as well. There we go. Okay, so let's get another threshold solver for use with the candlestick pattern indicator. Okay, so this one's a hammer. And let's change our indicator out. Oops. There we go. Candlestick pattern. Set this to the hammer. And pattern found. So this pattern found, when a patterning is found, I believe it always gives you a positive 1. I'll have to check that out again. I think it's always going to give you a positive 1 when a pattern is found. Let's see. So the hammer is a positive or a uptrend kind of pattern. So we'll put a 1 in the long output. Right? Hammers don't exist for a short situation, so we'll just leave all the short outputs. Just leave those. So we'll just leave all those blank for the short. All right, and so what we could do, actually. So I guess my guess would be, let's take a look at the swing direction, right? So we're in a down swing. So if you're looking for a hammer, right, you're going to be looking, because a hammer is a reversal pattern. So we're going to want the swing direction to be down, right, when we're looking for a hammer. So, and the hammer is along, so if we just throw it into a and, you see we get nothing there, right? And that's because the hammer is giving us a long output, but the swings indicator is giving us a short output, right? So they conflict. So there's no no consensus between the two. So what we need to do is we need to reverse the outputs here. So I'm going to use a long short modifier, right? And it's set to swap mode. So there we go. And oops, shoot. I hit the cancel little button just by accident there. Now we'll plug that into the AND node. There. And so there we go. Now we got our hammer confirmed with a downtrend. So, and let's see, we could do some others here. Let's all right, we'll do a bullish engulfing and a bearish engulfing. Okay. So I'll just drop those on the board here. There we go. Just need a little organizing. Okay, so let's grab some more AND nodes. And actually first, let's get these solvers, before I get going too far, let's get these solvers set up correctly. So I need to change my indicator, right? Because this is going to be for bullish engulfing. So I need to change my indicator settings to look for a bullish engulfing. There we go, bullish engulfing. All right. Bullish engulfing, so let's go find that. There we go. There's our bullish engulfing. So it found it. All right. That solver's done. And the next one down here needs to be changed for bearish engulfing. There's the bearish. And let's go find that. Interesting, it didn't mark it on the chart, but it marked it for BloodHound. That is odd. Let's see. Let me just double check here. Bearish engulfing for, let me check my indicators on the chart. Maybe I set, oh, okay, yeah, I set up two bullish engulfings, no wonder. Okay, there's a bearish engulfing. Okay, now it makes sense. Okay, there's our bearish engulfing. So now notice how our bearish engulfing actually gave us a long output, right? So we need to go and fix the output for that solver. Right, so bearish pattern, we typically would not want a long output, right? Typically, we're going to want a short output, like so.
So, okay. So let's kind of scroll through the chart a little bit. All right, there's another bearish engulfing. Okay, so now we got the right output from the solvers, which is a short output. And so next we shall combine these with the swing direction there. All right, so bullish engulfing. Keep in mind, you can also rename these AND nodes, right? So, and let's see. So bearish. All right, now let's go back to the bullish. Yeah, I'm working on the bullish. Let me go back to the bullish here. Okay, there's our bullish engulfing. And so I guess the question is, you need to ask yourself, you know, what trend direction are you looking for when you're looking for this bullish engulfing? Are you looking for, you know, an uptrend, or are you looking for a downtrend? Are you looking for a continuation trend or a reversal trend? Right, so this would be like a reversal trend, bearish engulfing. And let's move some of this out of the way here. So let me just get the names going in here. So if we want, we can look for a continuation trend, bearish engulfing. Like so. So there you go. That would be a continuation trend. And if we're looking for a reversal trend pattern, let's see if I can find one. Yeah, there we go. There's a couple of reversal trend bullish engulfing patterns. All right, and basically you just kind of repeat the same process for the bearish engulfing. So let's drop another AND node on here. And oh, I see. I'm getting my names mixed up here. These two AND nodes are actually bullish engulfing. Okay. All right, so there, now I've got all these AND nodes connected up. Let's take a look, see if we can find a reversal trend, bearish engulfing. There we go. All right, so we're in an uptrend, and then we got a bearish engulfing, and hopefully looking for a little reversal trend there. There we go. And let's see if we can find a continuation trend for the bearish engulfing. And yeah, so we're in a downtrend. Right, so right here we're in a downtrend,
and we got a bearish engulfing for a continuation trend, for a continuation bearish engulfing trend. And let's see if I can find one more. Lots of bullish. Let's see, there's a bearish, but it's not a continuation trend, it's a reversal. Another reversal bearish engulfing. There we go. There we go. In a downtrend, there's a bearish engulfing for a continuation pattern there. All right, one last one here. We'll get the hanging man built here. All right, so hanging man. There we go. Select the correct chart pattern. So now we got the solver built. And we'll put that on there. Okay. And let's grab it. And node. And let's see, we need the trend, direction, and then the pattern in here. So like so. Let's see, I'm not sure I saw any hanging man. I'll check the chart real quick. Just a moment. Actually, before I get going too far, I just kind of jumped right into this and made a bunch of assumptions here. Let's take a look at the solver itself. Right, it's always good to test the solver out first. So let me see if I can find any hanging man patterns. Yeah, there's just no hanging man on the NQ, but we'll just trust that it's built correctly. Right, there's really not much to using the candlestick pattern. It's pretty darn simple. Right, so we got the hanging man selected. So, and so here we go. Yeah, here's one thing that I did overlook. Let's change our output there. So, right, hanging man is a short pattern. So we want to get a short output from this solver here. All right, so we turn the long output off, turn the short output back on. There we go for the hanging man. All right. So I think that's probably as much as we can cover for this. All right, I think I understand Thomas's first one. So it's a question related to the signal blocker. So Thomas only wants to allow one trade per direction before the signal blocker gets reset. So the concern is, or the question is, let's say yesterday the last signal was a short signal, and so the signal blocker is blocking short signals now, and so the signal blocker is only going to allow a long signal to come through. So that's from yesterday. So the last trade yesterday was a short signal, and so let's say today the first signal was a short signal, but the signal blocker is blocking that short signal. And so we want to actually allow that first short signal through because it's a new day. So basically, when a new day rolls around, we want to reset the signal blocker so that it's not blocking anything, and it'll allow the first signal of the new day to come through, regardless if it's short or long. So, all right, let's kind of create an example here. Let's go to 15-minute chart. Great, and all right, so I'm just gonna have to make some signals up to work with here. So let's see. Okay, so we want to reset the signal blocker on a new day or the next day. And let me, here we go, perfect. So I got something here that generates a ton of signals. Just to use the price inflection. And actually, let's do something a little less. Here we go. This will work. So we'll use the swing indicator. There we go. So the swing indicator is generating a good fair amount of signals. However, the swing indicator is always reversing, so that's not quite going to work. All right, I'm going to take a look at these candlestick patterns, and let's see if we can get some duplicate signals looking at all these candlestick patterns. Okay, here we go. So we've got a long signal there. There's a long signal, and then a new day rolls around and we get another long signal. So keep in mind that, you know, right here, that's midnight. Actually, right there, that's midnight. Okay, so we got midnight marked. And so the previous day, we had a long signal, and then the new day starts, and we get another long signal. So we don't want the signal blocker to be blocking this long signal once we get past the new day. So let's just kind of show a signal blocker, and we'll kind of show the issue here. So let's set up the signal blocker. And let's kind of zoom in here. Okay, so we have a signal blocker, and all right, so Thomas has 200 in here, so we're blocking for 200 bars, and we have input opposite signal set to true, and let's see what else. I think that's the key. Yeah, really that's the key here. So input opposite signal, that, so for example, so actually, yeah, look here. So we got a long signal here, and then this next long signal was blocked. So a short signal has to come in first before another long signal can show up. So if we take a look at this, if you remember, there was a long signal here. So we got our first long signal coming in, and then all these additional long signals were blocked. All right, so we got 1, 2, 3 additional long signals. They were all blocked until this short signal came in. All right, so we've got this short signal coming in right here. And so this short signal, right, it's opposite of the long signal. So that short signal, since it's opposite of the long signal, that short signal reset the signal blocker so that long signals can come through. So let's gonna do a little trick here. So if we turn on the blocked output, if we set that to 0.2 or 0.1, then what that does, so you'll notice if you look at BloodHound's output here, you see this little output right there versus the signal. So this short output is at 0.2. Right? If we look at it all the way over here, we can see we're at negative 0.2. So this 0.2 is telling us that the signal blocker is blocking short signals. And over here, once we got this long signal, we can see that BloodHound is now blocking long signals all throughout here, right? And you'll notice that sometimes there's a gap right there, and it looks like the signal blocker is not blocking. Well, look at your chart. There's also a gap in the data right there too. That's why. All right, there's no bars printing there. It has something to do with the session template. All right. So, anyways, all right. So we can see that the signal blocker is blocking long signals, and then when the short signal comes through, the long signals are no longer blocked. Right. A short signal comes through, and it turns off the long signal blocking. Right, turns off the blocking on the long side. And that is due to the input opposite signal. That's what that is doing. So, all right, so, but really what we want is we want the signals, we want the signal blocking to stop at the new day. So that is where this new indicator comes into play. Fairly new indicator, the time block indicator. All right, so the time block indicator has a start time and a end time, which we could use the start time or end time, but actually we don't even need to use that. There's a built-in function to that that actually doesn't have any settings. So we're going to use that time block indicator in the threshold solver. Let's connect that up. Okay, so with the threshold solver, just name this solver here, so it's using the time block. So let's go in here and change our indicator. And so in the time block indicator, you see it has a bunch of bull series. And look at this, it has a special bull series that says first bar of the day. So that's what we want to use, is the first bar of the day. So that allows us to get a output from the solver that can then reset various function nodes. So we can use this first bar of day kind of signal to reset various function nodes. So we don't actually have to change anything. All right, start time and end time has nothing to do with the first bar of the day. Right, the first bar of the day is determined by your session template. So actually, no, I'm sorry. First bar of the day is actually determined by midnight. Sorry. So yeah, the first bar of the day has nothing to do with the session template. It's just midnight. So that's the first bar after midnight. So you can just leave all these settings alone. You don't have to change anything here. We're just using the first bar of the day. And then we want to get an output here. And NinjaTrader needs to think about this for a moment. All right, and there we go. So actually I could have put my line slightly on the wrong spot, right about there. So if we look at these signals, here we go. That's the first bar of the day. All right, we can see it's the 26th, and then over here we're at the 27th, and the first bar of the day we're getting a signal out of it. And so we can use this to reset the signal blocker. So if we go into the signal blocker, you notice I left the reset signal. I left that on. I left that to true because we're using the reset connector now. Right, so since we're using the reset connector, I'm going to use the reset signal. And so now so we can see a long signal comes in. The signal blocker is blocking long signals, blocking, until we get to the first bar of the new day. And we can see the signal blocking now turns off. Right? There's no signal blocking there. And then therefore we can get the first signal of the new day coming in, regardless if it's a long or short. Right. So there we go. So there's the first question for Thomas. So simply we're just going to use the time block. And so let's see, this is the first bar of the day. There we go, first bar of day. All right, let's see. So this question involves using the swing high-low indicator. So we're looking at swing points. So the question is there a way to compare the current closing price, the current bar's closing price, with the previous swing high-low, widest bottoms? So are we talking the previous bar or the previous swing point? You know, previous what? Kind of have to get detailed about questions like this. So in the meantime, let me get the indicator up here so we can see what we're talking about. And and let's see, we'll leave number of swings to 3 so we get more swing points. And the question is about using the widest tops and widest bottoms, which are the highest highs and the lowest lows. Or that's the highest high, that's the lowest low, basically. So let me stretch this chart out here. So what Thomas would like to do is compare the closing price of the bar, and let's see, this bar hasn't closed yet, so we compare the closing price of the bar and so here's the swing high 1, That's right. That's the current swing high. And then there's also a previous swing high. So this is the one that Thomas is interested in. So he's wanting to know, how can we compare the closing price of the bar with the previous swing point? So you would need a indicator. You would need to have an indicator that specifically plots the previous swing points, right? So the issue is that the number of bars of the current swing is always going to be changing. It's always going to be different, right? So with BloodHound, right, you can look back in bars, but you have to know, but you have to tell BloodHound exactly how many bars to look back, right? That's how programming works. So even if you're writing your own custom stuff, you have to specify how many bars back do I look, right? Or otherwise you just have to capture the value of the previous swing point plot. You can capture that and store it in a temporary variable. But BloodHound doesn't have temporary variables. It's not, you might as well be writing custom code if you wanted to do that. So so the issue is that the number of bars that the current swing point will always change. So you never know how many bars back to look to get this previous swing point. So the other alternative is you have to write your indicator so that your indicator keeps plotting this previous swing point. Right. So there we go. Yeah. So just to kind of set an example, you would need additional plots added to your indicator to plot the previous swing points to capture those. So, Thomas, what you could do is find the original indicator from Dorston up on Futures IO, and then you can go in and modify that indicator to include 2 extra plots that will track the previous previous swing highs and swing lows. Basically track the previous widest tops and widest bottoms plot. Okay, good. It looks like Thomas understands what to do. Sounds good. Good deal. But let me just kind of point this out here. So this is actually, somewhat of a common misunderstanding here. So the question was about the slope solver. The question was about looking at the slope of an indicator, and a weird output was being received. So the solver was giving an output going from 1 to 0.66 to 0.33, right? And so what sometimes happens is people use the change in slope thinking that is a slope solver, but no. The change in slope is, like it says, it's looking at the change in slope. And really what most people want to be using is the actual slope solver. So the slope solver just determines, is your plot sloping up or is it sloping down? The change in slope looks at, well, the change in slope can detect various changes in the angle of the slope, right? So if you just simply want to know, is my indicator sloping up or is it sloping down, you do not use the change in slope. Use the slope solver to determine, is my indicator sloping up or sloping down, or is price sloping up or is price sloping down, right? This change in slope has some specific functionality, looking at various change points. So when an indicator, I guess a typical use for the change in slope would be like the stochastics, right? Because the stochastic is like an oscillator, right? It'll begin to slope up, and it slopes up in various degrees of angle, right? It kind of curves up. So the change in slope helps you look at that curving pattern of an indicator. So when an indicator gets that curving pattern, and when it begins to curve up, and then it begins to roll over and flatten out, and then it begins to curve back down, right? So that's what the change in slope is for looking at this, the curving pattern of when an indicator begins to curve up and then curve down. So, but most people just want to use the slope solver. So, right, so I'd say 95% of the time you're going to want to use the slope solver. So these are, different, these are doing different functions. All right, so yeah, Wave has a question about programming. So he's asking, so in BloodHound the current bar is 1, and in NinjaScript the current bar is 0. Is that correct? No, that's not correct, actually. So NinjaTrader has different ways of looking at different ways of indexing the bars. So you'll notice that this actually says a lookback period. So NinjaTrader's lookback period, the index starts at 1. So what you're used to looking at just the index number, not the lookback period. So let me switch this over to, let's go to an indicator value. And you'll see we have a displacement of 1. So that's how you can index bar numbers. And you can see displacement starts at 0. So the displacement function, right, it indexes at 0, like what you're using, what you're typically used to for NinjaScript. Whereas if you use a lookback period within NinjaTrader, for some reason they decided, well, it's because it's a period. So you can never have a period of 0, right? You can never have a period value of 0 because that's 0 bars. So whenever you're using a lookback period, it has to start at 1 for at least 1 bar. So it just depends on, whether it's a lookback period or a displacement determines whether you start at an index of 0 or an index of 1. So, and you can look in Ninja's help guide, to see what a lookback period is. So just as a general rule, we always use terminology that NinjaTrader uses. We don't like to reinvent new terminology. Is there a solver to find the close of a bar is greater than the open of a bar? Yeah, that's called the bar direction solver there. So let's take a quick look at that. Let me go to the logic board here, and here we go, bar direction. So just drop a new bar direction here on the board. Connect that up, and there you go. So you can see we're getting a long output for an up bar and short outputs for down bars. Let's expand this out a little bit. And then if there's a doji, right, a doji doesn't have a body, so there's no bar direction for a doji, so a doji doesn't have any output. There you go, simply the bar direction. And you know, the bar direction does have some settings here, so you could look for bars that are at least 5 ticks, you know, where the body is 5 ticks or greater. So like so, yeah, let's see here. Let's see. Oh yeah, I'm looking at 15-minute bars, so these will all have pretty big bodies. Let's go down to a 1 minute. There we go. There you go. 1 minute bars. So those bodies are going to be smaller than 5 ticks. There you go. All right. So there's a little bit of flexibility here with looking for bodies of certain sizes if you want. So I'll just reset that back to 1. So, and then if you want, you can look for a certain number of bars in a row. So say I want to find three bars in the same direction. You know, there we go. So now it waits for the 3rd bar in the same direction, and then it starts painting. So there you go. There's 3 up bars in a row plus many more up bars in a row, and it just keeps painting like that. All right. Let's see. Looks like there's a follow-up question here. And all right, so another question here. Does that also work for candles if the low is different from the open, for example? So no, the bar direction it just tells you simply the bar direction, right? That's all it's going to do. So if you want to start comparing the wicks of the bar or various prices of the bar to other bar prices, then what you'll want is the comparison solver. All right, so let's connect that in here. Open this up. See, what I've done is I set the indicator up to look at prices. So I could compare the closing price to any of these other prices here. So if I wanted to, I could compare the open price to the low price, or whatever price you want to compare. All of Ninja Trader's prices are right there, so you can compare all of those like so. So you can mix and match whatever prices you're interested in there. So there's already a bunch of workshop videos, looking at different, looking at different aspects of a candlestick. So there's a bunch of videos up there on YouTube already that you might find handy, but let's see if you have a specific question here. So if you want to compare, so the default is we're comparing the same bar to the same bar. So the look back period determines whether you're looking back to other bar prices. So if I wanted to look back to the previous bar price, I would set that to 2. And then I'm looking at a single value. So I would be comparing the open price of the current bar to either the high or the low, the low or the high of the second bar back. So you can mix and match, prices, looking at prices of the same bar to prices of the previous bar, if you wish. So let's see, let's find some videos here. that you might find handy. Let's see, here we go. Okay, so we're on YouTube, and so I'm just searching. I'm searching for these BloodHound workshops, and then let's put in here. Let's just search for wicks. So here we go, detecting candle wicks and specifying trade time. So anyways, detecting candle wicks. So that's going to be using, right, the bar prices to look at various candle wick metrics, I guess you could say. So here you go. Is there another one? Detecting a bar closing at the top or bottom 25% of the candle. Right. So once again, that would be looking at the prices of the bar. So there's another video. Let's see. So the topics aren't always in the title. Let's see. Oh, second one. There we go. Detecting bar wicks. Let's see. This one's rank up counter and various Raven questions, but it probably has some questions in there regarding wicks. Here we go. Yeah. So there's a logic that finds wicks on Renko bars. All right. All right, there you go, wave. So I hope that kind of gives you something to start with. But if you have a specific question, just go ahead and type it in there. All right, so we've got a multi-price pattern question, I guess. All right, so we want to identify a candle that has a higher close than the open. All right, so that would be a bar direction. And a lower low than the open. All right, so we want the low to be less than the open, so you want a wick. Basically, we want a low wick. And let's see, and a high that equals the close. Okay, sure. All right. So let's use this in a comparison solver to do that. All right. So let's see. All right. So we'll just find a bar with low wicks. We'll just say lower wick. So, all right, so we we'll leave this at the open and set both of these to the low, like so. And let's figure out which of the outputs we want. So I guess, if you're detecting it, whether a bar has a low wick or not, to me that seems non-directional. So what I'm going to do is have this solver just give us a long and a short. And so what that's doing is it's just saying that, oh, we have a low wick. Actually, no, sorry, that's not a low wick. That also could be just a down bar. All right, so yeah, so that's going to detect a down bar and a low wick. And all right, so we'll set this aside for now. See if that might need some adjustments later on. Let's grab another comparison solver, and we're going to make sure that the high equals the closing price, or the close of the bar equals the high of the bar as well. So let's see. So the close equals the high. All right, we'll set both of our inputs to price, and so the closing price, and down here we'll put the high. And for our outputs, we want to check to see that they're equal. So we want A to equal B. All right, so there's our outputs. And let's take a look at the chart. So so there we go. The closing price equals the high. Here, I'm just going to make a guess here, and let's going to change this here. Okay, yeah. This is kind of interesting. So if we look at this bar, the close of that bar equals the high, and the open of the bar equals the low. And then down here, and so we're getting a long and a short output at the same time. Now if we notice this bar, we're getting a short output, and that's because the close equals the low. And if we go here, once again, the close equals the high, so we get a long output. And then the open equals the low, and so we get a short output. So basically, if there's a bar with a long and short output, that means there's no wick. If we get a short output, that means there's no low wick. And let's see, here, so on this bar, we had a low wick, and we got a long output for a low wick. In the bar previous to that, we had a high wick, so we got a short output. So, I don't know, maybe, we might be, if you're interested in kind of reversing the long and short output, so maybe if it has a high wick, you want a long, and if it has a low wick, you want a short. So if you kind of want to reverse these signals, all you need to do is just reverse your prices here. So for a long output, set that to the open price, and for a short output, set that to the closing price, and then also reverse these as well. So for a long output, you want to set that to the low, and for a short output, you'd want to set that to the high. And then that would actually reverse these outputs here. So, but I'm guessing here that this is probably falls in line with what you're looking for. And all right, so I think we have everything. So let's connect it all together with an AND node, because we need all three conditions to be happening at the same time. We need all three conditions to be true at the same time. So let me just make sure the bar direction solver is set to its default setting. Yep, there we go. So there we go. All right. So we're finding bars that close at their high but have a low wick to them. Looks like that's what you're looking for. All right. Well, Wave, if that does it for you. And yeah, so with that, guys, have a great weekend, and I hope to see you guys next week. All right, bye-bye, guys.